introducing them from the waiting room. But I am delighted to have those of you who have been able to make the time to be here for our webinar today. In the series of Compassionate Caring, this is our 15th webinar. I mean, who would have thought we would have reached this point, but we have, and I am so grateful to my team that has worked relentlessly to get us to this point. The topic today is an interesting topic and perhaps a difficult conversation. It is the questions around inheritance and looking at a caregiver's readiness for inheritance. We believe that in our 7 elements of well-being, for caregivers, this addresses 2 big parts. One is the financial and legal well-being, and the second is psychological well-being. And we will speak a little more about that. But I would like to first talk to you about Caregiver Saathi, our organization. And Caregiver Saathi is an ecosystem of well-being and healing for primary caregivers. Now, primary caregivers are family caregivers of those navigating terminal illness, chronic conditions, or other life-limiting conditions that are incurable, have their unique challenges, and we would like to support them through their caregiving journeys and beyond. In order to do that, we partner with a lot of organizations because we believe that collaborative effort is going to help us solve this humongous problem. What do we wish to do? We wish to create an environment of well-being in that the caregiver feels empowered. So long as the caregiver feels empowered and has the power of choice, we believe that the caregiver will have a sense of healing, will be able to lead a full life, and that is going to be pivotal to the well-being and healing of the patient. So it really works very well if we can look at the family caregiver in addition to the patient. Most of our healthcare system currently focuses on the patient, and the caregiver tends to be invisible or unrecognized and even underserved. So our purpose is to serve the family caregiver. How do we do this? We do this, we believe very strongly in the power of human connection. However, in our current times, we can create significant reach and scale only through technology. Technology can be a great enabler. So we use technical and technology-enabled systems for human connection. Our focus is on creating awareness programs, both online and offline. Compassionate caring is our effort in doing that. We have a helpline. We have healing circles, which we used to conduct in person and these days conduct online. We have a lot of communication using social media. We create access to relevant and necessary information for family caregivers. And we provide a platform and an app which is technology enabled so that caregivers can have a reliable, trustworthy, and accessible, easily accessible resource during their caregiving journey and beyond. What have we done so far in terms of resources that we have made available? And many of them are, almost all of them are complimentary actually, is our platform, the app, and our website. The education that we provide both online and offline, the app that you can download. Those of you who have not downloaded so far, I will encourage you to download and give us feedback or participate in our community, which is available on Facebook and WhatsApp. We share stories of caregivers. We believe very strongly that sharing stories is going to be critical and essential for us to change the narrative of caregiving and caregivers in our country. Caregiving and caregivers are considered to be such a deep and intertwined part of family responsibility that a lot of us see ourselves as responsible children, caring partners, or loving parents, but we do not see ourselves as caregivers. sharing stories of caregivers who we lovingly call gentle warriors is absolutely essential so that other caregivers can feel, can see the reflection and can feel that they are not alone in their journeys. Those of you who may know other caregivers that are willing to share their story, please get them in touch with us and we would love to share their story. Pranabda, who is on this call right now, is one of those gentle warriors who has not just shared his story, but has also spoken about Caregiver Saathi's work in so many forums. And we are so grateful to him for that. Compassionate Caring is the series of webinars that we bring to you where experts come and speak to you about the various aspects of well-being and healing that are relevant in caregiving. Why do we call it compassionate caring? Because we believe that caregiving can be done in a way that the caregiver need not be sacrificed. If there is compassion in the caregiving, then not only is the patient important, so is the caregiver. So therefore, we might need to learn new ways of providing care, much against the social narrative that a good caregiver is one who sacrifices herself. We provide caregiver coaching and family counseling. And finally, we provide respite care currently predominantly in Mumbai, which is volunteer based, but we are hoping to be able to increase our reach in other parts of the country. I would like to focus your attention on a bereavement support and a grief counseling line, which we have initiated in partnership with Pallium India. And this is a telephone line that is available free for those of you and others that you know that may be experiencing loss. The pandemic has brought to the fore loss and grief for a large number of people. And loss and grief is not just the loss and grief of a loved one, but it is loss and grief of, let's say, a pet, or maybe a job, or maybe just the loss of our social lives. And if you need to encourage somebody to talk to a counselor free of cost online, then they could get in touch with our helpline. There are many ways in which one can participate beyond just being a recipient of our services. You can participate by joining the healing circles or our support groups, by sharing caregiver stories, or by encouraging others to tell their stories and help us spread the word by participating in our online community. You can volunteer with us. You can definitely help us raise funds, and you can encourage the youth to participate in our internship program. And finally, give us referrals with partners, hospitals, and organizations where we can talk about our services and what is it that we are trying to do. The concept of caregivers and caregiving is new to many people. While it exists in every home, not everybody looks at it like that caregivers need attention and need mental health support and need psychosocial support. So we need the energies of each one of you to help spread the word and say that the caregiver is important. We use a framework, and in our framework, at the core of 7 elements of well-being and resilience is the idea that well-being has 3 elements, like physiological, psychological, and spiritual well-being. This is at the core of an individual. As an interface with the world, there is social well-being, there's financial and legal well-being, and there is life and work purpose. If we put all these elements together and combine it with the life force of the creative expression, then the 7 elements of well-being can provide a very sound framework for helping caregivers navigate their difficult caregiving journeys. When there is an imbalance in the well-being, that causes stress. And chronic unaddressed stress over a long period of time can lead to a variety of mental health issues. I was reading a recent statistic that there is a very high correlation between suicide and long-term care. There is also a very high correlation between loneliness and feeling and depression and feeling isolated socially when there is long-term care to be provided. And very often caregivers carry the secondary trauma and the burden, not just during the caregiving journey, but after and sometimes for generations. There is therefore a need to learn how to build resilience through practices of mind, body, and soul. With that, I'm delighted, absolutely excited to introduce you to the speaker today, Rajat Datt. I, Rajat and I had a conversation about this venture so many months ago, and I am so happy that we are finally bringing it to fruition in terms of this webinar. Welcome, Rajat. Rajat?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I think, Bhavana, thank you for those kind words. May I request if I can take you through my presentation?
Just hold on a second. I'd like to read your very illustrious
Oh,
introduction. I just wanted you to say hello. And
okay.
Rajat is the founder and initiator of an incredible organization called Inheritance Needs Services. I think some years ago, you may not have thought of this as an organization. To that, I feel that this is such an innovative organization. By academics, he is a qualified chartered accountant, a company secretary, and a law graduate. My God, these are all things that I would run away from. So, Rajat, thank you for doing what you do, because there's no way I could have, I still am so fearful of these aspects. I'm hoping that you will help us reduce our fear. He started his career from RBI or Reserve Bank of India and traveled the path of corporate India with work experience that spreads across textiles, pharmaceuticals, shipping, and hydrocarbon sectors. He was with CRISIL and has been an investment banker for a significant part of his career. His experience of working in professionally managed, institutionally owned, as well as family run businesses enabled him to identify an existing gap of serving clients through feet on the field level support, ground level support service in terms of documentation and correspondence, communication, and sorting out matters. Um, And we are so grateful as Caregiver Saathi that there is someone like Rajat and his team who can help caregivers navigate this very tricky area of inheritance and legal aspects. Very often, I know this for sure, that when I was caregiver to my father, and there would be a conversation around the will, or there would be a conversation around what will happen after me. It was such a difficult conversation, and I did not want to have that conversation, and we made some mistakes in that process. And how can we therefore sensitively handle this very critical thing? We will spend the next 60 minutes having a discussion and a presentation from Rajat regarding the topic for today and its implications for compassionate caring. There are three parts. There is a presentation, question answer, and then feedback or your suggestions. Some admin announcements in terms of hygiene. Please keep your microphone muted to minimize background sounds. We will invite you to share your thoughts as well as to ask questions. If you're seated and your camera is stable, keep it on. Otherwise, request you to turn it off. It can be quite distracting. We are recording this webinar, and some section of the discussion may be used for sharing later. However, no section of the participants' interaction will be disclosed publicly. So you are welcome to ask questions and feel free to clarify doubts. Rajat is quite an expert here. So We will be referring to this discussion for designing more suitable programs in the future. So let's talk about it. And with that, I am going to give the sharing access to Rajat while he brings that on. Rajat, you can share your screen and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bhavana. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Bhavna, for giving an opportunity. And I think you have been worked a lot in this field. And uh, while we spoke about it quite a time back, I think it was destined to be organized today, especially when Friday the 13th, 2020 is the Dhanteras Day.
Right.
While Friday the 13th has been nomenclated at many more things, but let's not go into the history, but I would like to go into mythology. Dhanteras is also considered to be, performing pujas for the god who imparted the wisdom of betterment of mankind, and no other thing better than speak on the platform of caregivers or care sati, which is actually looking at betterment of mankind. I mean, I look, Bhavna, at you, your organization and your team as one which is going to help and revolutionize the social fabric in what I am today, what I respect my seniors, elders, or senior citizens, and because tomorrow, day after, someday, sometime, I will also become one who is going to be a recipient. So I look at this as a movement, and I think it's no other better day that will start the new dawn in this social movement. So let me tell you about pandemic and what it had made us realize. Each one of us would request you try to look within yourself. It made us feel the importance of the family. It made us all need of social support during grave times, the criticality of the family well-being, and of course, above all, the need for community feeling and help. Each one of us, while restricted to the four walls of whether it is a one room, two room, three room, or a mansion, all felt this somewhere or somehow. And what did this result in? If you started evaluating the situation from the other side of the table, you started valuing things which you never looked at, and you started disregarding things which you valued the most earlier. So the preparedness for an uncertain future, which was never as a part of your even radar of thought process, started coming in. You started thinking of preparing yourself. What if I get the symptoms? What if I get asymptomatic? What if tomorrow the local administration comes next door neighbor? What if, and so on and so forth. So the essence of empathy and apathy started actually having small green shoots within each one of us. The attitudes, the posture, the way of thinking, the way of talk all started taking undergo a transformation process. And you all thought that there was a need for a soother. When I say a soother, a person who can talk to you, who can relieve you, whom you can ventilate with, whom you can understand, and whom he or she can understand. So, typical situation for caregivers that we are talking today is the need for care. When I say care, it includes an aura of things. It could be medical, it could be financial, it could be emotional, or otherwise. Riding the expansionist wave with the age is no longer being the criteria for care. It is not that when you touch 65 plus that you start thinking that you would be requiring care. Today, the best of young people who are so stressed in work also need care maybe from an emotional or from a spiritual side. So, what I want to tell you is that the Bhavana's organization is holding a whole umbrella of care. It is not only restricted to palliative care. Yes, palliative care or care in medical emergency or care or medical terms is maybe today a large component. But if you go through her early introduction slides, she has counseling. She has various other things under the branch of this caregiving. So caregivers community is increasing. It's the family members, friends, acquaintances, and many more types. Thereby, the need to view caregivers with compassion is, I think, the order of the day. I have come across very people during the COVID times who actually children were abroad and their siblings or the distant cousins came and traveled all the way by road to stay with the elders. Why? Because they need to be given food in time. The housemaid was not coming. The nurse who was at home did not come, went away. So who would take care? So this is the new breed of caregivers. Now there is more of empathy and apathy coming in, and people are now somewhere thinking of biting their nails and saying that we should not have gone for nuclearization of families. Or even if we have nuclearization of families, there is a time when we should have a relook at it. So, the view of caregivers with compassion is their future gets largely linked to that of the care seeker. This is a typical problem. Once a caregiver who is a family member or a friend or an acquaintance, their future starts getting linked with that of the care seeker. Their indulgence makes them devoid of their surroundings because the caregiver is so much focused on serving the care seeker. The indulgence they virtually become like a shadow. The focus on serving could result in sacrifice of their own well-being. I know many daughters-in-law who have actually left behind all hobbies, all passions, all careers only to take care of their family members. So their future after care seeker and during the care tenure, what needs to be addressed. And this is what we are wanting to share in this platform. So who is a caregiver? It could be a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a child or children, a relative or an acquaintance. When I'm saying all this, think yourself that you have children with special needs. Such a scenario wherein you know that the care seeker is going to outlive the parents. You need to look at it and address the issues positively and also grow up with the scene. So serve the care seeker and each one of them would have distinct situations which needs to be addressed. While care seeker is a sole focus, caregiver needs to ponder over the issues surrounding himself or herself and be prepared for an eventuality because there could be a possibility wherein, as I mentioned on special children, the caregiver could actually kick the bucket faster than the care seeker. Can you identify yourself as a caregiver in each of this, the picture that I've just shown you? You are a baby boomer, you are Generation X. Today, you are born somewhere between 1945 and 1960. And here you have old parents. So you are a typical caregiver. You had no inheritance work with you and you worked hard to build a career. And you also made a focus on wealth creation. And now you have to serve a parent who has probably sacrificed everything for you. Come back, you are born between 1960 to 1980, and you are Generation X. You had expected, not expected for inheritance, but you had huge wealth, and you need to take care of your parents or maybe parents' parents. In some cases, yes. And you need to take care of them. And to take care of them, you need to take care of yourself as well. You think of your children who could be your potential care giver, or because you are busy in your work, they are caregivers to your parents who are care seekers. So our generation Y is serving a generation X. And it is seen in many households, this is the situation. But a generation Y is educated and he is carefree. So you are sitting here, you are into two different formats. You have a parent who needs a care seeker, and you have a child who is a caregiver, because you cannot do that job because you need to take care of yourself, because to take care financially for others. Now, this is a big responsibility, and you need to address this as well. Can you think that the caregiver also has to think of himself? So many things could have happened in a split of a second. There could be a car accident, an air crash, a highway accident, there could be a fire, there could be a tsunami or a natural disaster, or there could be a health problems. What I want to say that the caregiver should understand life is certain, life is uncertain, death is surely certain. He cannot leave anything by chance. So he has to decide on how he has to take care of himself, because he is, in any case, dedicated and focused to take care of somebody else. So, what I want you to know is that you need to address inheritance as a caregiver. It impacts each one of us, whether caregiver or a care seeker, and it is different for every situation, and time is running out. It's very easy to say that I do not have a testamentary document. I'm using the word testamentary document because that's the document which is going to help your inheritance or legacy. You say, to tell you frankly, if you have assets or property or some wealth, maybe 5 lakhs, maybe 10 lakhs, if you do not make a document and if you're not savvy of making a legal document, then it would get to the next generation in terms of the religion of the birth of the person who is dead. So, if a caregiver does not take care of his own wealth or his value system through the legacy, then it can land into trouble. So, if he has not made any document, the Hindus, Jains, Sikhs, or Buddhists will follow the Hindu Succession Act. If it is not, if it is Parsis, Christians, and Jews, they'll follow the Indian Succession Act, and Muslims follow the Indian Muslims Act. But I've often heard of people who are caregivers saying that I have assets, all in joint names, and additionally, I have nominations registered. Recently, I have come up with an article in Money Control. If you have the time, you can Google it, in which I have shown live cases in which the banks have faulted in paying to the registered nominees as well. So one must understand that only having a joint name or even having a registered nominee essentially does not mean that you are going to get the funds to the next of legacy. And this article has been printed in Money Control. What I want to bring home the fact is nominees have different meanings. A nominee in a bank account does not have the rights of a legal heir. A nominee in a life insurance policy is only a trustee. In case of a mutual fund, nominee is only a custodian. Only in case of a demat account, nominee is the owner. And the biggest investment of any person is in a cooperative housing society, in which nominee is a mere custodian of the heirs. These are the different definitions legally binding on the word nominee, and hence, if any caregiver thinks that just because he has joint account or he has nominees, he is through with the legacy, I think that needs to be read much more. So, what is the noise all about? Well, you need a document which you need to be prepared when you're alive. The cheapest, easiest, and the least hassle document is a will. So, will is the only document which has a bearing on the wealth distribution of the assets who is going to die post his demise. And hence, it is such a critical document that you cannot afford any ambiguous statement or loose statement or statement which does not meet a purpose. Because any mistake in drafting, in terms of recording ownership or in execution, could be an execution challenge. And it may actually happen that the beneficiaries may said, इससे अच्छा तो हमारे लिए नहीं छोड़ के गया तो अच्छा था. I am sure you don't want your next generation to say that. Hence, the bereaved family would need to spend huge effort in retrieving in such cases. So, effort should be made in drafting and making a proper will, because otherwise the whole process goes for a toss and it is time consuming and cost gulping. So, what is coming up is inheritance is emerging to be a social responsibility. How does one meet to address the issues? That is what is important. And what you will see is how does one meet it, address the issues of inheritance. You have to ensure protection to the earnings and the wealth, and you have to organize seamless transition. Normally, it is said all this at what cost? So the cost is estimate of your evaluation. You need to evaluate yourself that for an asset of 10 crores, 5 crores, 1 crores, what is the amount of money that I can spend on a good drafter of a will or a good lawyer or a good chartered accountant, so that at least that amount which I have saved and kept for the next generation may actually be fruitfully. Otherwise, you go for a 500 rupees will through an internet, you may actually land up in trouble because that will may not be actually executable. I am wanting to bring back two case studies which I think is very relevant. So here is a case study which I want to share with everybody. In a will, the husband mentions that his property goes to his wife till she is alive. But on her death, it will go to her son and his legal heirs. I think this is a very standard way of Indian format of making a will. But nothing is in your control. No one is immortal. No one can time the will. The son dies before, immediately after his death. So after the father dies, the son has died, or the son has died and then the father has died. Now is the catch. Husband's will get triggered and will go to the wife. Now it becomes the wife's property. So she will be guided on whom she can give it to. You cannot then enforce the will of the husband that after wife it has gone to go to the children. The legal position here, colleagues who are listening to this webinar, should be very clear that at this juncture it becomes the wife's property, and the wife, if she decides to make a will, she can give it to anybody. But let me stop you here. If the wife has not made a will, then it will follow the Indian Succession Act or Hindu Succession Act, depending upon the religion of the wife. So at this juncture, let us presuppose that the wife dies before the son. In such a scenario, the son's property will be guided by the son as per his will, or it will go as per laws of succession. So, because a individual can decide the first level whom it goes and provide a condition that if that person dies, then it should go, but you cannot decide subsequent movement of the asset. That is what I wanted to convey you. Here is a second case law, which is a very different case law again. What I'm saying is, father had 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters, and through a will, which was very sketchy, which he thought he had made a will, and he had only one witness who had signed, he had followed the following format, that for his immovable property, it should be shared between 2 sons equally, for immovable property, and for all movable property, it should go to his 4 children equally. Unfortunately, because his will was not proper, it was not signed, and there was only one witness, it was not a will at all. So, because it was defective, the court took a view that the property of the father will be divided among 4 children and the wife. So everybody will get 1/5, irrespective of movable or immovable. But the wife smartly made a will, and she said, I will follow what my husband's spirit was. So, accordingly, what I will do is, I will give my portion of the immovable to my 2 sons equally, and the balance I will give it to all the 4. Now, because the mother's will was valid, what typically happened is that after the mother died, she gave immovable property, which was 1/5 share to the 2 sons, 1/10, 1/10, and the balance, everybody got 4 parts, so 1/25 each. Now you can understand how the spirit got totally disillusioned from what the husband had originally wanted to do. So what I want to bring home the fact is, oh, I'm so sorry, is that in summation, I would like to say that preparedness for situation to combat state of dementia, Alzheimer, or worst case, a coma. People think making a will is a solution, but please let me tell you, a will gets triggered only on demise. But have you been able to think, or even in a way decide that there could be a possibility when you are hit by either dementia or Alzheimer, or you end up into comatose, and you are technically not dead, will cannot be triggered, and the medical bills are soaring. In such a scenario where we companies like us come into picture, we are able to project that situation and build in the documentation today. None of you will know, also you should know, that in a fixed deposit which you have with banks, normally people use the word any one or survivor. I also used to do it, and I'm sure all the people who are hearing today would have any one of survivor between themselves and their spouse. But that is the biggest mistake that one has made. And I will prove it to you why. You have never thought of a scenario. You have always thought that one of us will die and the balance surviving owner will be able to get the money. But have you, sir, thought about, or madam, thought about a scenario wherein one of the two of the spouse is actually admitted in a hospital and requires 20 lakhs for a heart surgery, and you have got 40 lakhs in fixed deposit, but because it is either a survivor, you cannot monetize that deposit, cannot prematurely withdraw, cannot take a loan against that deposit, and hence you cannot be operated. I earnest request to you is, and this also has come up, my article has come in moneycontrol.com. My request to you is all, if you have any fixed deposits which are either a survivor, please go and make it any one of the joint owned holders as operating. This will solve and de-risk you totally. Evaluate all possible options of operational risk. This comes under that during old age and palliative care. Our family, our spouse, our sibling need not be pained to undergo the strenuous process of the beneficiaries. Leave nothing to chance, act now, and nothing to interpretation. Laws are getting stringent by the day. Your wealth, like your value system and virtues, you must remember, should pass seamlessly through legacy. Your thinking process should be tuned to attain the objective rather than prove burdensome to the family. I am open to all questions and answers, and I would be happy to take them.
Can I ask a question?
Please go ahead, Mridula.
Thank you very much. I think it was very useful, and a couple of questions that come to my mind, but I just want to ask one. I am 76 and I live alone, and my son is abroad and daughter is not living with me. After my husband's death 7 years back, um, I keep thinking, now you're talking about the will. Does a will have to be registered and notarized? because I keep changing my mind. I write a will, which is a piece of paper, and after some time, then I feel no, I want to do this, and especially when it comes to giving certain amount for charity, and I keep changing my mind, which, how much, and to whom. So that is something, and that is why I have so many drafts of my will. So I don't know if I really, if I have to get it registered or notarized. I mean, I'm a bit fickle-minded about my will. I just wanted your advice.
Sure. Thank you, Mridula. Thank you for, I mean, on the will, you can go for hours together, but I'll answer your question straight. By law, you do not need to be registered, neither notarized. Point number one. Point number two, why do people then get it notarized or registered? So, a simple will written in your own handwriting, which is legible and which has two independent witnesses attesting it with their phone numbers, PAN card number, showing that they are alive and real persons, is required. So, you require the will to be dated. There should be a date on the will. You should write it or type it down. You should sign it, and you should have two witnesses who should authorize that yes, in front of you they have signed it, and please don't forget to attach your recent medical report which just mentions that you are of sound mental health. That's about it. You make this paper, photocopy it, send it to your children who are beneficiaries, and keep the original with you or into a safe place where people can open it and read it. Logically, people register wills only on two or three occasions. One, when their property is under dispute or family dispute. Two, when they think their children are going to fight for the property or the assets. And three, when they are not too sure that if the somebody plays with their will later on, it is better to register the will, because one son or two sons or one child could be able to manipulate the will. These are the three apprehensions. I think you have a son and a daughter. I think there should be, I'm just presuming, good relationship.
Yeah.
So there should not be a problem. You don't need to neither notarize it or register it. But
Okay.
if you have a very high value asset, a 100 crore house, then I think you should look at it. But if you have, I mean, a modest house, like anything below 2, 3, 5 crores, I don't think that's a requirement. Now, it's not advisable as well. Now, the question here is you change your mind only on one aspect, which is the uh, the aspect relating to charity or donation, as I call it. Why
Yeah.
don't you do one thing? You put a clause in your will which says that I would like to donate and dash lakhs to the as per annexure A, which forms a part of this will, and that annexure A you go on changing today, 10 days from now, 15 days, and every time you make a change, you sign it and attach it to that will.
Right.
So and if you are going to make a change on the 30th day, then you take that out, tear that piece and attach the latest one. So what will happen is only the constituents of that parties will change, maybe cancer hospital or a leprosy college or whatever. Only that will change, but the amount cannot change, which is there in the main will. So that will help you to solve a situation.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank
Pleasure.
you.
But I wanted to hear some more questions. You said you had many.
Well, I'll let other people ask because I.
No, please go ahead. We will, may people take a little while. You're.
Okay, so I'm also a carer for my nephew. I mean, not a primary carer, but he's my sister-in-law's only son, and father is not there. So, and he is person living with mental illness. So we have formed a trust for him, and my sister-in-law and I, we are the only two women now around because both our husbands have gone, And we keep thinking now this question of the trust. It's like a family trust. So, is it important to put in money in every year in that? Because we've just created the trust, but we are not adding to it. My sister-in-law always has this doubt that once she goes, then that boy is not going to be able to look after himself. So at that time, the thing will be, house will be sold and the money will be transferred. So a little about managing a trust, family trust.
Okay, so first of all, one must remember that while forming a trust is very fashionable and people fall for this idea, but it is actually giving birth to a small baby dinosaur, because with the number of years that baby becomes a big dinosaur and you cannot handle it, right? I'm so happy that you said that you have not funded that trust. So what is important is you require two types of things. One is you require adequate financial backing for that child, and the second is you require adequate manpower or trained people to handle that child. These are the two things, because he or she is going to outlive both of you.
Yes.
Having accepted the fact, I think consolidation of your financial assets or other assets should be made such that you wind it up, presuming that you are not going to get up tomorrow morning, God forbid, such that if such happens, then it does not become a challenge to be for the executor to execute it and get funds together. Now, we handle a lot of special children and their parents, and we found out that forming a trust is, as I told you, fashionable, but who will run the trust? Who will take care of the trust? And how a child who is staying in this house for last 20, 25 years, you cannot dislocate, and he's got used to this ecosystem. You cannot dislocate that child from there and take him or her to somewhere else and put him after both of you die and put him in another format into another environment and stuff. So you need to give him a solution here itself. To give him or her a solution in that same house so that for the rest of the life he takes care is possible through various financial formats, wherein the house you don't sell, but you have financial format in which the money automatically goes to take care of himself, and there are agencies who handle this part of the job for you,
Okay, okay.
because uh, go
So
into.
how do you go about it? I mean, then that agency will.
So the agency cannot withdraw the money. The agency cannot spend, is allowed to spend the money only for specified purposes, and agency is gets a amount to take care of this as a fee.
So
But
rather than a family trust, you're suggesting an agency. Is that?
no. I'm saying that the trust becomes
The
effective.
trustees are there.
The trustees trust becomes effective only on your demise. Point number one. Post your demise, all the financial assets move into that trust. And then the trustees appoint that designated agency whom we have decided today. I would like to take you through, if I have 2 minutes, Bhavna, I'll just take her through that. There is Angels. The Nightingales is an organization in the US and the UK which operates only for such type of cases. We tried them to get into India, but it was difficult for them to come into India because there were laws and regulations were little not conducive for them, wherein these type of agencies take care of situations of special children exclusively by giving them a solution in their house itself. So there is an implant which comes into the house and stays with this boy for 5, 6, 7 years and becomes a part of the family.
But that is after the
No,
mother
that
dies.
happens before. before, so that the boy or the girl also get acclimatized to that part of the family. When the parents are there, the implant comes and grows with the boy or the girl.
And what is that what do they get I mean,
They
they
get
must
they
charge you.
they get a monthly payment from the trust. The trust that you have created, they will give them a monthly payment.
Well, right now the trust doesn't have that kind of money, no?
No, so
Because
what I said is the trust does not have to give any money today. Today you are spending after that child. When you die, your financial assets will go and move to the trust. The trust is born only after your death. So it's a part of your will.
okay.
There is also another organization that I came to know of recently. So I don't know the mental health challenge, but I know that there is a home for autistic children, and in fact, a friend of mine has moved in with her son to that facility. And the point being that most likely, I think the idea is to manage the transition. The idea is to say that one of the parents is no more, so now there is one parent. So the two of them have shifted into that facility, so that the son can settle in, and that facility
That's
is
only for
independent.
autistic, is it? Because
Sorry.
the Mental Health Care Act 2017 also talks about supported accommodation, and that's what we are trying to advocate. But so far, it's only at the legal level. It is not being implemented at the state level. So we are doing advocacy for that, so that if what this child needs is supported accommodation. So the house itself is recognized as a supported accommodation and gets the benefit. So we are working towards it, but I mean,
I
lots of
can
hassle.
understand that, but maybe it's worthwhile, if you don't mind, ma'am, that you leave us a message. We will need to figure this out. It's not a
Yeah,
ready answer. We can
right.
talk to some of this other, but I like Rajat's recommendation very much, so that
I put it in the chat box and give my address.
yes, please, you can maybe note the email ID that he has written, write to at inheritanceneeds.com, maybe give the details. They could respond to you or write into us at info@caregiversaathi.co.in, and either is fine. And we will, some of these things require figuring out.
Yeah, yes, yes, I understand.
I have another case, Rajat. Unfortunately, that particular caregiver couldn't join today's session. But the case is as follows, that this particular caregiver is the caregiver. But the father was a caregiver for many years to two children, and one of them has mental health challenges, has cognitive disability. The daughter has mobility challenges and therefore is restricted to the bed. The third child, who is a grown up individual, has been looking after the two siblings. And now that the father is gone, is responsible for the two siblings. Now, this particular person has also inherited the father's house, but there is no will. So, in order to be able to support the two siblings, this individual needs to, how will this be handled? For example, because he also has a family of his own, and there has to be some kind of an inheritance transition that has to be done from the father's assets to these three siblings, of which two are severely dependent on the third.
Yeah, so Bhavna, there's a very interesting case wherein the heirs are not into proper mental state.
Yeah.
The amount of financial assets, because in this case it will be equally among the three, the amount of financial assets, that is two-thirds for both his two siblings who are not in the proper mental state or mental health or condition, would need to be deposited back to the court, and the court will appoint administrator to take care of them. He has an option to use that money till the time there is money in under the administration of the court. But he has to follow the court process of succession in this case. So, because there is no will, he has to follow the succession route, get all the assets transferred. In fact, in one case, there was a Supreme Court judgment in which he could sell the house and one third his share, and of the two-third, it is kept under the regulation of the court. So, the court is extremely clear in that.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to have a conversation with him at some point, and maybe we'll figure
Sure.
out how we can support him, and other things. I was very intrigued by your question personally around the fact that the will does not need to be notarized. In my particular experience, I found that my father's will was not notarized, and I could have gotten it wrong. But it was also that the witness that so my dad's friend, almost like a brother, was the witness, but he also passed away.
So there's an interesting slide I wanted to show, but I thought it may be too long. So let me make two things clear. The witnesses cannot be beneficiaries. So if my dad has made a will and I'm going to get part of his share of the assets, and my sister is also going to get, we can't be witnesses to his will. But
Mm,
there is a possibility that the witness have died before the person who has made the will. That's a possibility. There is no problem at all. In fact, in cases where the will has been challenged, there are n number of case laws in the high courts and the Supreme Court, wherein even if the witnesses have died, the court tries to find out the validity of the will from the way it is made, and it also uses various scientific tools of forensic to find out whether the paper was that old when the date will was made. So there's a scientific way of handling it. And the courts, remember, the courts all over the country and abroad value a will in very high regard and esteem, because they say it is the death wish of the person.
mm. Um, I was also very intrigued about the idea of one of the other webinars that we had was around the living will. So there is the need for us to also, given the longevity and everything else, probably articulate how our bodies and us be treated when we don't have the cognitive ability to take the decisions. So whether it is dementia or it is coma or it is, ventilator in the COVID times, how do I want to be treated when I cannot take decisions for myself is something that the living will has been promoting. And now there is the asset will as well.
Yeah, so let me make it clear for the audience and for everybody, a living will actually is a medical advisory.
Yes.
So it will not come in case of Alzheimer and dementia. It will only come in case of palliative care, and in case wherein you are unable to be guided by a decision wherein you are already admitted. So, a regular dementia patient or a regular Alzheimer patient who is walking and staying at home or will not come under a living will. Only way is admitted to a hospital and we don't know what to do because he is not responding and he is not in his senses. Will a medical advisory come? The government of India has, as late as 2009, passed this act on 8th of March that the living will or euthanasia is legal, but there is a full proof laid down process or procedure for it. You need to make a living will before, get it in the similar will like a will, get it attested and duly attested by two witnesses and with a medical certificate that while you're making a living will or a medical advisory as we call it, you have not you have been in the true sense of your mind. After that, what typically happens is when your family or your friends you are admitted, give that paper to the medical board. There is a process of your consulting doctor, head of the department of that particular hospital, the chief medical officer of that area, district medical officer or the chief medical officer, somebody who is appointed by the government of Maharashtra or Gujarat, wherever you are, to be a part of this committee. And only after their true consensus, only if there is consensus, I repeat, only if there is consensus is it allowed to be executed. So the government has taken all types of precautions to see that there is no misuse of this living will.
That's, I have to say, it's a little intimidating, for a person like me. I'm afraid of, or I get a little intimidated, like, oh God, this also has to be taken care of, this also has to be taken care of, etc. And especially when, like you rightly pointed out in one of your slides, that when there is so much going on for a caregiver, to have these conversations can be very difficult. I remember, the fact that with my parents, my father's car was in his name, and the my mother could never bring up that conversation with him because she felt she would hurt him, and but it was not practical, and to have shared assets.
So I
So,
think what you said, Bhavna, is I think the crux of the matter, and that was the genesis why we formed this company.
mm,
And our company says inheritance needs what you may need for inheritance, and that's why we our product is of preparedness for inheritance.
mm,
That is, that you plan for a vacation to Switzerland, or you're planning for your marriage anniversary, or your birthday, or your child's birthday. You know those definitive dates when they're going to come in the next calendar year, and you plan for the occasion. But
mm,
death, which is so fast, does not give a pre warning. You need and does not give time to think. It just happens in seconds. You
mm,
need to plan for that event. I'm not saying that you need to plan what could get disrupted. And you can tell me that there is a fact that whenever an event happens, the entire family is in such a shape of bereavement or a situation of bereavement that these things strike you hard immediately after that.
mm,
Those your colleagues, your friends, your family, everyone will come. Those 10, 12 days are all okay. And after that, we have handled cases when the family has cash flow problems because it was not done. Because as in India, the spouses say, "Manne ki baat mat karna, aap aisa hone hi nahi wala hai," and the husband also does not share everything with the spouse, and that's the problem. It's more of a mental block, and then both of them come to a big problem.
mm.
And we have seen cases in which both husband and wife kick the bucket together. I mean,
Yeah.
we have cases in which the husband has died due to a heart attack, and because of trauma, the wife is continues to be in a traumatic state, even 8 months, and the only child is a minor. All the bank accounts are frozen because technically she is alive. Technically, the daughter is a nominee, but she is uh, minor, so no funds can move. Now, people don't think that such a situation can happen, but surely it can happen. One must be able to be ready for the worst.
So Pranabda has a question. Pranabda, would you like to ask yourself? Pranabda, are you there? Okay, he's placed a question in the chat box that says, at the time of Pranabda, would you like to ask your question yourself?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. Uh, Rajat Babu, Rajat ji,
Yeah, no, sir.
namaskar, namaskar. Uh, if the will has been prepared, say for I prepare the will with the witnesses, to my two friends, maybe junior in age, but after my death, my higher, when before claiming the two witnesses have passed away, then what will be the consequences of the will?
It is a valid will. If there is a will is dated and if the two witnesses are signed, it is a valid will.
But
Because
they will not be found.
no, not required.
Okay.
Nowhere in the law it says that the witness should be alive.
Okay. Okay.
They should witness it, and they should be people who are actually on. I mean, that's why we say that address should be there. If anybody proves that they were false addresses, then they are not witnesses. But you said that they are your friends, that means they were in flesh and blood, and they have signed it. It's enough. You don't have
But
to. That's a valid will.
Mr. Datta, in afterwards in the court or in the registration office, they will prove, they will identify the signature of the witnesses.
No, they don't need to identify. They will learn
then I had a misconception. Okay.
I will explain to you.
Okay.
The court is when suppose there is a will and you are asking a probate. If your house is Kolkata, Madras, or Bombay, at that time the person who's asking a probate or calling for a probate or a letter of administration will be the beneficiaries. When they will give your will, immediately on giving the will, they will find out the technical aspects and the real aspects. The technical aspects will say it is dated, there is a signature, is the signature same as his signature, PAN card, Aadhaar card, and what is the name of the witnesses. Please find out the address whether they are arriving. If this is right, and they will say that those people have died, attach their death certificate, and the probate will be given.
Actually, why I am just asking you another thing, that my missus has passed away, okay, due to cancer, and I have only one daughter. She is living in Chennai. My property, that small property, the flat, I just took a decision to put my to elevate to get it minus my missus name and enter my daughter's name, and it has been already done. So in the bank account, I took my daughter as a joint account holder. So I think I have done right. Okay.
Your house, how did you, where's your house?
In the flat.
Where?
Chandanagar.
In
West Bengal.
In Kolkata, right?
Near Kolkata.
Okay. So how did you change your wife's name and put your daughter's name? What document did you make?
Yeah. After that, I submitted the death certificate of my wife. Okay. And in the corporation, municipal corporation, I submitted the death certificate of my wife, and there are two flats, one single room and one double bedroom. And in the single bedroom, my daughter's name was there, and in the two bedroom, she was not in the picture. I put her in the picture. I took her in the picture, and corporation allowed corporation.
So the actually corporation is not the legal competent authority to decide the ownership. You need to file a mutation in the district court of Chandanagar and get your name of your spouse deleted through a mutation process. There is a mutation process.
Yeah. That is done. That is done. Mutation process is done.
So if the mutation process is done, it will be done at the sub-registrar's office.
Yeah. It is done already.
Yeah. If it is so, corporation is only a local self-governing body. It cannot decide the ownership.
Mutation
it can only decide taxation.
Yeah. Mutation
so if
is done.
mutation is done, then your daughter's name is included. So you are in the two bedroom, you and your daughter are joint owners. And in the single bedroom, your daughter is the single owner.
No, they are also, I entered actually.
Okay, whatever. So it has to be done through a
Actually,
mutation process.
yeah. Already mutation is there, and deleting my Mrs. Name.
Yeah,
Of the,
mutation process means deleting.
yeah.
Deleting and editing is known as mutation.
So I think, yeah.
Mm.
Actually, I thought of that. My age is
But
more
now
than.
I would suggest you make a will in which you will mention you own 50% of this house and 50% of that house, and
Okay.
everything should go to your daughter. For you should make a will on that as far as immovable is concerned. For
Thank you very
movable,
much.
you in any case you have made her the joint account, so she is the owner. So that's not a problem.
Thank you
But
very
you
much.
should
Thank
also
you very much.
provide. You should also
Okay.
provide in case she dies before you. Then what?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much
Pleasure.
for your advice. Okay. Bye.
Uh, Bhavana ma'am, yeah,
Yes,
I have
please.
a question.
Please.
Yeah. Uh, Thank you, sir, for this presentation. It was indeed very useful. So I had a question. Like I myself am a caregiver, and my dad is suffering from dementia. And since it was an early, like now he's a bed patient and he cannot respond. Even he doesn't have the speaking speech
Can you be a
ability.
little louder?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, a little louder. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so my dad is a complete bed patient and he cannot respond, and also he cannot speak. Cannot speak. And uh, so my mother is the one who's working. So I live in Bokaro Steel City. So she's working in the SAIL Hospital, Steel Authority of India Limited. So we live in the quarters. Now my native place is in Kerala, and we don't have a house there. So we have land. I mean, we have land there, and and some of the land is in my father's name, and he doesn't have a will. So the only way when she retires and we can go back and have a home is when we sell that land and buy a house, modest house for ourselves. So now since he cannot respond and he cannot have we cannot have him has his signature. So is there any way that the land can be transferred to my mother, or something like that, when there is no will? And you know
If he
is
is
that
alive, as he is alive, he may not be able to respond. Can he put his thumb impression?
he cannot put his thumb impression on his own? I mean, he cannot do that.
No,
I mean,
that is because of strength. But if you take his thumb impression, put it on a paper, is that okay? Is that possible?
that is possible, but I don't know how much he will because his cognitive ability has gone completely. So
Yeah, I'll
uh,
explain to you.
yeah.
See, what happens is when I say signature of will does not mean only manual signature. Even a thumb impression is a signature. That's point number one. But for males, it is on the left hand thumb impression, and for
Mhm.
females, it is on the right hand thumb impression. That's point number one. Point number two, I think if you don't make a will, getting that land which is in his name to your mother's name is going to be much more tedious job and much more expensive. You should make a will, which, as I explained to you how to make a will, you make a will and get his thumb impression on that, and get two
Mhm.
individual witnesses for all his properties and assets. And on his demise, I hope, God forbid, does not happen, but on his demise, that will be a much safer document rather than wait with no document and post his demise try to sell that property.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so
Surely.
much.
Jova, you may want to get in touch with Rajat by writing a note to him and clarifying what is required for the will so that
Yeah.
you get it right.
Yes, I will. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. All right. What a lively, discussion session. Rajat, I have to let you know that of all the webinars that we have had, perhaps this has been the maximum questions, So that says something. Are there any other questions? Just checking. out of curiosity or any real case, anybody who would like to have a question or any feedback or suggestions?
It's been a very useful webinar, and I think you've, Rajat, and you put it up very nicely and clarified a couple of things. Thank you very much, Bhavna.
It's great to have you here. Thank you for making the time. Nabia has launched a poll asking for all of you to give us feedback on the webinar. And while you do that, I would like to take this time to thank Rajat for making the time and making this such an engaging and powerful conversation. I really wish that many more of our caregivers from our community could have taken advantage. I hope that we will be able to get them interested for our next discussion, and you will be able to give us time at that time too.
Sure,
Uh,
Bhavna. It's a pleasure to talk to people, and I always like to bring account real life situations and try to solve them. So that's what is all about.
I
Thank you.
know that, there was so much anxiety and tension in our home because of the fact that, my father's will was not available, or if it was available, there was all kinds of multiple opinions around it. And we seem to hold some anxiety about approaching a lawyer as well. So, sorry about that. But while lawyers are there to help clarify, there is also sometimes a little anxiety that, will I get good advice? Will I get
In
really?
fact, that's the one thing which is actually a difference in our organization.
Uh-huh.
Uh, while we do not, we guide you on the legal case, we do not misguide. The reason being, we want you to understand the full case, and after you define that you want to now follow this, we then identify the lawyer who will do it for you.
Right.
So that's the biggest advantage, and I would like to take this opportunity to mention about my company's board. We have uh, a very illustrious board. We have India's first lady deputy governor of Reserve Bank of India on my board. We have
Nice.
ex-chairman of State Bank of India. We have ex-former country head of Ernst& Young. We have member of board of ex-member board of SEBI and IRDA. We have people of that high eminence. India's first private lawyer, Burgess Desai, and that's why we are very institutional type.
That's incredible, right? It's so comforting. Mridula, were you saying something?
Yeah. I just wanted to, so I've written this book,
Hmm.
which I had just completed, and I had, only printed it last month, where I have documented my volunteering experience. And there are a lot of stories which are from the ground of working with mental patients as a carer, as a person who is managing a rehab center. So I think, these live experiences from the ground are always very stimulating and thought provoking.
No, they are. Thank you for making the effort to not just provide the service, but also documenting your experience and sharing that with us. We will look it up. But I would like to really thank you, Rajat, for having your organization and spreading the word the way that you're doing and supporting us at Caregiver Saathi. Thank you very much for everything. And thank you, everyone here, for being here today. I love the juxtaposition of Dhanteras and Friday the 13th. So it's quite an incredible year. 2020 has been. It's a gift that is not that continues to give. So
Happy Diwali to all.
yes, so a very very happy Diwali to each one of you. May the,
Same to you and thank you.
yes, thank you, and may there be lots of love and light in each of your lives. So much that you can spread it to each to the others. So, with that, thank you very much. Have a great festive season and a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.